No,
It's the first time I actually got hurt on our podcast.
Yeah, no, this is horrible.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Penalty Loop Podcast, a podcast about biathlon by Jordan Gottschalk from Penalty Loop and a regular guest, RJ Weiss from Biathlon Analytics.
Hey, RJ. It's a bit of a surprise. I was not expecting to be talking to you today.
No, and I'm happy to see that your ceiling is still in one part. There's no sticks or branches sticking through, and no cracks in the walls. So very happy to see you healthy at home and with working power, obviously.
Yeah. We lost power for about a day, and that was it. So it was overall
pretty good.
We got pretty lucky down on the west coast of Florida. So on the Gulf Coast, it's a rough time. They're still digging out, and yeah, it's a mess over there. So, but we got lucky, and I appreciate everybody who expressed their well wishes last week. So thank you, everybody.
Hey, interestingly enough, we've been talking to the previous guest a couple times about summer biathlon, how they see it, how they use it. Where is it going to go in the future with the changing environment and stuff. And then just recently I saw that, and we'll go through how to correctly pronounce his name in a minute. Jacques Jefferies. I'm going to do a mix of the two pronunciations. He wrote an article about exactly that topic. What's the future of summer biathlon, and how does it kind of work with the existing winter biathlon? So he was kind enough at very short notice to join us. So Jacques, welcome to the podcast, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, it's a pleasure. I've been listening to the podcast for many months now and reading about everything that you guys talk about on X. So it's a pleasure to be able to meet you in person from the other side of the world.
In virtual person, yeah. And I must say right away, your English accent as a Frenchman, it must have taken you many years to perfect that.
It's quite an art, which I work on daily. But
I imagine, yeah. But
it's something which surprises a lot.
Just go through it right away? Like, let's just jump into it. Can you explain?
Might as well. So I'm born in France, half an hour away from where I live, in Thonon-les-Bains, a beautiful French town on the side of Lake Geneva. I'm brought up in France. That's why I'm allowed to race for the French Ski Federation, and that's what I do. But I have two British parents, so I've learnt English from my youngest age, and this is why I can speak perfect English, well, more or less perfect English anyway, and I'm also not too bad at speaking some French.
No, yeah, I couldn't test you on that, but what I've heard, it sounds pretty good to me. And what area are your parents from, if you don't mind me asking?
Both of them are from England, where my mum's from up north in Middlesbrough, and my dad's from down south near Poole Harbour.
Not necessarily alpine areas, so to speak.
No, not at all, but they were both. My dad's especially a massive fan of the mountain area and Chamonix. So moved here very, very young and have lived here ever since. And I live in an area of the French Alps, which is very English focused. If you come to my town, you can go for a full winter without having to speak French.
And you have to drive on the wrong side of the road and stuff. Or...
No, still driving the way the French people do, but sometimes
crazy.
I do think I'm surrounded by English and not French, even though I'm living in a French town.
Is it just that it's always been a popular town? It's always where James Bond was recorded, right? Chamonix?
Chamonix is very British focused, but it's much more expensive than where I live. I live in a cheaper town, and I'd argue a nicer town as well. Chamonix is beautiful if you can go.
Mm-hmm.
But it's starting to lose a little bit of snow lower down and losing a little bit of its charm.
Yeah. So I think it's, from what I've heard, it's fair to say you consider yourself a Frenchman first.
Yeah, most definitely. I've always raced in the French system. Always been helped by the French Ski Federation, the French Olympic Committee as well. And even though I have contacts with the British people, it's always in the back of my head. For now, I'm happy where I am.
Right.
Maybe you can't answer this question. Have they tried to get you to race as a Brit?
I wouldn't say that they've tried. They're happy with me racing for France. I'm sure they would definitely like me to race for Great Britain. Lots of the athletes who I see during the winter come up to me and say, "Oh, when are you going to join us? When will you come? You're always welcome here." And they're a great people. All of them are very friendly, and the federation is slowly building itself, getting better and better. And who knows what will happen in the years to come.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a couple of younger English biathletes that are now, we'll see about that, you know?
Yeah. When I look at their social media, I'm like, oh, lots of them are progressing very quickly. And I hope we can get some more, because I'm always supporting the British. I was always a massive fan of Amanda Lightfoot when she used to race on the World Cup. And I can't wait for some more British athletes to race on the World Cup again.
So, but we'll get back to biathlon in just a second. But so which soccer team, which football team do you cheer for?
I support my local team, which is Annecy FC. They are in the second division of the French league. Currently doing very, very good. There's only been five game days, but currently on promotion. So hopefully they can keep it up all year round.
Yes,
yeah, I'm not
magnificent.
Football's not my biggest sport, but I'm always here to support the local teams.
Yes, of course.
And at the Champions League level?
It's a bit more complicated, mainly supporting the French teams, but then the only decent French teams on Champions League level is Paris, and it's always controversial supporting Paris.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if, and I'll drop it after that, but if France and England are playing each other in the final, I have a feeling you're rooting for France, but if England would win, would you still be okay with that, or does it still hurt?
It's a question I always get asked, especially at the last Football World Cup. I think the match was about to happen in the Seven Nations in rugby as well. They always come up against each other, the crunch. I always make a choice and stick to my choice, but I make my choice on the day. So if I go to a bar and I'm with my French friends, I'll often choose France, obviously, because if I support English in a French bar, I will just get looked at very badly all day long.
Fair enough.
No kidding.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I would imagine. Sorry. So British parents moved to France. You were growing up there. How did you end up in biathlon?
So I live in an alpine focused ski resort. I started off doing alpine skiing in my local club in Saint-Jean-d'Eau. I stayed there for 5 to 6 years when I was much younger, but never a big fan of intense downhill sports. Not a big fan of high speeds and things like that. So yeah, I was one day there was an open day at something called Biathlon. I had no idea what it is back in the day. But there was some 10-meter air rifle shooting, which got me very, very excited. And that was in the summer. And then when the winter started, I discovered I had to take on something called cross-country skiing as well, which was a bit of a surprise to me. But in the end, I fell in love with cross-country skiing and the shooting part of biathlon. And that's what I've been doing ever since now for I think 13 to 12 years, 12 to 13 years.
Did you start with classic cross country?
No, skate. Well, a bit of both. I used to do both circuits in France, the Nordic circuit, cross country circuit, and biathlon circuit, which got me into trouble sometimes because back in the day I was reasonably good at both of the circuits, and my biathlon trainers would go, "Oh, you're tiring yourself out doing both of them," and so I had to make a choice one year, and I stuck to biathlon, and I definitely do not regret that choice.
Well, you had a good precedent with Olander Bjørndalen used to do it in his day, and I think that turned out pretty good. So
yeah, it'd be much more complicated nowadays with the racing calendars being so full.
Yes.
During the winter when I have the time, I'll always sign up to a cross-country race with my mates. It's a race with no pressure, much more fun, and we can just enjoy it instead of having a constant it's pressure that we have on our shoulders when we do biathlon.
I'm actually really curious if Johannes Tingesbo would still compete with, say, Kleibo, or if that gap has also increased. That even the prime skiers on biathlon are still not close to the.
I would love to see it. I know Martin Fourcade wanted to do it at some point as well. I remember he trained for one whole summer with the Nordic team in France, not the biathlon team, to race the cross-country circuit, but it never happened. And I would love to see a matchup. Hopefully they find the time at some point, or the IBU and the FIS can work together and put a slot in the calendar to make it happen.
That would be awesome.
Even just like a week or two after the season, just like a exhibition race, just to so it doesn't affect their real sport, just to have fun.
Yeah, you don't have to make it very long, just make it to 5 kilometers or 7.5 a distance, which is kind of in the middle for both.
Who knows, maybe they already did something just kind of off the record, right?
I'm sure they've trained together before.
I could imagine that they don't run into each other. But
so over here in the States, and we obviously don't have a huge biathlon tradition. So when you talked about being like on the circuit, or like, what does that mean when you're a teenager, right? So what does that look like in France?
It depends where you race. I was lucky enough to go to my high school was a sports high school, so I was in a sports class surrounded by other alpine skiers. And it's amongst the school there was also hockey players and things like that. So it's not like the sports culture that you have in the United States, where I know that sometimes when you're on the hockey team or on the football, the American football team, you are not the king, but you are well looked upon. In France, it's definitely it's just a bit of the French culture. People don't like celebrating other people's success, so it's not always the best. But my friends from town who don't do professional sports and who watch us on the circuit are all really supportive and enjoy what we do. But I think that's also down to the local culture from where I live. So the more mountainous areas, maybe if you go outside of the mountain areas up to Paris or down south, I don't really know. I don't have the opportunity to talk to many people from down there.
So how do you catch the eye of the national team? So I mean, eventually you got selected to train with the national team. So how do you get that attention? Are there races that bring everybody together?
Exactly.
Novice, so we have nothing like that.
That's no problem. I can explain how the structure is in France. So everything starts from the club level. So local clubs, which is where I started. This is very young. You do races in between clubs from your local département. So I live in La Haute-Savoie, and I'd race with other athletes from La Haute-Savoie. From there, you get picked to join the departmental team, the regional team, if you want. Ours is called Le Comité de Ski du Mont Blanc. I was there for 4 years. During those 4 years, I was also in high school. So they would train us. They would take us on training camps. I'm amongst the best athletes in the region where I live. And also during those 4 years, we race on the French national circuit. So this is a circuit which encompasses all athletes from all over France. But I say all over France, it's very close to the mountains. The mountains in France all group together, more or less. But we see each other all winter. There's about 20 races on the French national circuit. And then this is where all our selection races happen. So often the French Cup will also be, it's always over one weekend. There's always 2 races, one on the Saturday, one on the Sunday. And this is set at the beginning of the year. But for example, if I want to race on the IBU Cup this winter, I have to perform well during the first 3 races of the season. They make a general classification, and they will take the top 6 athletes to race on the IBU Cup. So for me, when I was picked for the first time in the French team, I was leading the French Cup in my first year in under 22s, and this is when I went to Aubertilliac, I think, for the youth and junior world championships in what must have been 2021 or 20. Yeah, I think that's it. And and then after that year, I got picked for the French junior squad for the first time. So yeah, that's basically how it happens. All our races, once you get to my level, are always against every single other biathlete in France. We don't have more regional circuits for biathlon.
You mentioned mostly Alps. Is there skiing in the Pyrenees?
There is. You can go to Forumeux, where you often see national teams training there. I know the Swedes always go down to Forumeux for some high altitude training. The facilities are amazing. I've had the opportunity to go there a couple of times. Racing there doesn't happen very often. I've been there once for cross-country skiing, but I've never raced there on the winter circuit.
Okay.
Yeah, and we don't either go up north in Les Vosges, which is also a big shooting range there, where there is a regional team as well, and they hold races all winter. But we've never been up for a French Cup.
Okay.
So after you get picked for a national team like that, how does your life change?
It changes a lot in certain ways, and then not a lot as well. So I'm lucky to race for arguably the best regional team, the Comité de Ski du Mont Blanc. There is a regional classification at the end of every year. We've been on top now for the past 4 or 5 years, which makes everyone happy. It's just, we change trainers. So we join the French national team. We get a specific shooting trainer, a specific physical trainer. As to in my regional team, I only have one trainer for 15 athletes who does the physical part and the shooting part. So it's a smaller team. You get better staff. We also get physiotherapy when we're on our training camps. We get access to better equipment as well with our partners. So, for example, Rossignol, who are my partner, will give me better skis if I'm part of the French Ski Federation. We also get free access to most of the shooting ranges in France because of a partnership in between the French Ski Federation and the shooting ranges, which is also useful for me to train. Apart from that, not much changes because
free ammo?
Free ammo, yes, actually, yeah, most definitely free ammo. I'm lucky to get free ammo in my regional team as well.
Okay.
But I know some regional teams, the athletes pay for their own ammo. But yes, no, we get free ammo, and we get the great support all year round. So yeah, that's amazing. And obviously, we get to train with the other best athletes from our generation, which is obviously a massive plus.
Yeah, okay.
Just
pure curiosity. Do you know how much a box of 50, either like what is it, La Puo or
La Puo? Yeah, we I think we have RWS now in France. But I know a box of 50 is like 6 to 7 euros, I think, in France.
Okay.
Yeah. The La Puo is probably more expensive, 8-9 euros.
Right.
But the boxes I shoot in training, the 50, are 6 euros 50, I think.
Yeah, I think we pay just around 9 Canadian, so that's pretty similar. I was just curious if it was more expensive here, but and so when you, because you said our region is the best and everybody's happy. I'm assuming you meant everybody in that region.
Yes,
but I always get from like the national championships and some of the even the Montagne-Fourcade Nordic Festival that there's a good camaraderie and also competition between the regions, even if it's been 10 years that anybody raced for their region necessarily, but that's always kind of representing where you're from.
On the national, when I'm part of the national team, which I had been for the past 3 years, and I'm racing on the French Cup, I'm still happy to beat my opponents from the other regions. Also because our score counts towards the score to the region as well, which helps. But no, even when we're in training camps, and we do like the shooting competitions against our teammates, always want to beat the teammates from the other regions.
Right.
Yeah. Now, there's always it's something which happens a lot, but I'm in love with where I live, and I'll defend where I live until the end. So I always want to win.
Is that a general thing in France with winter sports? Would you say?
Yeah, definitely. I know some athletes who come from regions where there's not as much level will sometimes change regions to train with better regional committees. I haven't done that because I don't need to, but I know lots of my teammates old teammates have done that, and it happens a lot. It's not frowned upon at all.
Okay.
Definitely. But no, it's look, I know lots of French people are very proud of where they come from. So.
Mm-hmm. Are you okay to switch, Jordan, to the
Yes. Yeah.
the article that you wrote? Okay.
Real quick before we do that, so I know that that you've had a couple of opportunities to compete at at Junior Worlds, and I was just curious.
Yep.
We haven't talked about that particular event, and I'm just curious what it's like. I mean, being with all like the best of the young biathletes in the world, like, is there a sense that like, hey, this is the future of biathlon, like, or are you guys just so focused on what you're doing at the moment that you're not even thinking that far down the road?
No, it's an amazing event. I've been lucky the 4 years where I've been able to go. I've been there. I did 1 year in youth and 3 years in the junior category. And it's an amazing event. It's the one which, as a junior athlete, everyone wants to go to. It's the one I wrote down for the past 3 years on the top of my objectives is to perform at the Junior Worlds. It's an amazing atmosphere. I think the biathlon family helps this. It's as when you race on the junior cups all year round, there's less camaraderie in between the different national federations. Like, we'll talk to each other, but we don't. Mm-hmm. We're still focused on the racing, and I think at Junior Worlds we're focused on the racing, but we're also here to have a good time at the highest level of competition. It's like our mini Olympics, if you want, for us, because it is. I think it's an absolutely amazing event. The organization, there's always an opening ceremony, a closing ceremony. They make us feel special during this kind of event, and I really like the 4 years I spent on the junior circuit, but I am also looking to race on the higher up circuit now for the years to come. Juniors was good, but I would like some IBU Cup races as well.
Yeah, well, and this year you took home a medal, right? I mean, you guys the relay, right? You got the bronze.
The bronze medal, yes, in the men's relay. I brought home a medal every year, I think, in the relay competition. Yeah. Didn't do quite as well on the individual side. This year was my best year with 2 top 15 finishes, I think, on the individual events. But in France, for us, relay medals is the best. Like, I'm happy winning an individual medal, but I'm even happier celebrating a medal with my team. It shows that everyone put in the best work, from the technicians to the staff to all athletes. So really happy with our third place medal that we got this year with my teammates, definitely.
Well, now you got to make room. You got to make room for your future medals, right? For more senior world championship medals.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely an objective for the years to come.
I was going to ask, what's that feeling once you start training with the national team, and all of a sudden you see these guys? You mentioned Simon Fourcade on your website as one of your first trainers at that level. To just be around those guys that you see on TV and the best in the nation, like, what is that weird, or have you seen him enough in the past when you were younger, just in the world of biathlon in France?
The first year, it's definitely really impressive. Simon Fourcade as a trainer, he was one of the biggest names in the sport. When you tell people, my coach is Simon Fourcade, they're like, "Oh, you're so lucky." Also, he's a handsome man, which helps. Makes all the girls are very jealous, the men as well. But no, it's really impressive. I didn't have the chance to be around Martin very often. In my first year, I did get the chance to do a training camp at the same place as him. And surrounding him is a level of expertise which you can feel just by being on the shooting range with him. But I've had the chance now to be with the French A team a lot more. I know them much better, and some of the athletes like Oscar, Eric, Emilien last year, athletes I was in a team with as well. so I know them very well. And yeah, it's still amazing to be able to train with them. It's part of the federation's objective is to have the A and the B team to train together as much as possible, to share knowledge and to progress together.
Is there a specific moment you can remember where you started feeling, rather than the young guy training with the big guys, to I'm one of the big guys?
I think it's when you're on a training camp with them and you have people around you looking up at you, or when I go back to my regional committee and they're all really happy for you to come and train with them as a national federation athlete. That's definitely an amazing atmosphere. I was always really happy to go and train with them, to share the little knowledge I have with some of the athletes. But yeah, that's when you feel that, you've made it, but you're getting closer to where you want to be, when people start to come to you and ask for some of your advice. It's an amazing feeling, definitely.
You are an interesting athlete because while we greatly respect your abilities on the skis and with the rifle, really what we're here to have you here for is because we are mostly interested in your brain. Because I think that anybody who has followed you on social media, especially on Twitter or X or whatever, is aware of your Substack, where you're sharing your thoughts. And by the way, if you haven't looked it up, I mean, we'll put a link to it in the show notes. Definitely go take a read through. It's really well written, and just for somebody so young, like some really interesting thoughts on biathlon. Obviously, sharing your experience, but also thoughts on biathlon, the sport as a whole. And what triggered us, I mean, RJ and I had talked about having you on previously, but then you wrote this article about summer biathlon, and we're like, you know what, we have to have you on right now. We can't wait any longer. I kind of wanted to start this with, tell us about your experience this summer at the Mortain Fourcade Festival, and then we'll get into talking about summer biathlon as a whole.
Yes, I think it's been the 4th year now that this event has gone ahead. It originated in Aix-les-Bains a long time ago in a much smaller style event, which didn't have biathlon. It was only cross-country skiing, but it was run by the same team of people, who's Alexis Boeuf and Martin Fourcade and their group of friends. And then 4 years ago, when Martin retired, they launched the Martin Fourcade Nordic Festival, and I haven't missed an event since. Lots of my friends from the Nordic world don't always go. I've always made it a definite stop on my calendar because it's often sunny. It's in Annecy, which is not far from where I live. It's a beautiful town, and it's also an amazing event. It brings so many people to our sport in a time when it's not generally something that we talk about. It's also an event I like because I've always looked at the Blink Festival. I've always looked at City Biathlon in what used to be Wiesbaden, which is now in Dresden, I think. So yeah, I was really happy for this kind of event to come to where I live. And yeah, when I'm there, I'm often go with some of my friends. There's always all the local partners. It's a great time for networking, to try and find a ski partner for the winter, goggles, sunglasses, gloves, poles, everything. It's also a time to see some of the biggest athletes in the world up close, which you don't always get the chance to do. I don't, like, when I'm racing in the winter, I don't always have the chance to go and watch the World Cup when it's in Le Grand Bornand. But having it, the same athletes from this World Cup in France, that I did, well, touching distance away on the other side of the barrier, it's always an amazing feeling.
And so how do you experience the summer when you're there, when you're participating? Is it just a separate fun event? Is it part of your training? Is it a serious competition? Like, how do you?
So I sadly haven't had the chance to race in it yet, because obviously there's only 8 athletes on the start line, and it's the 8 best athletes in the world, which one day I hope to be a part of, obviously. But talking and just being there and talking to some of the athletes, lots of them come because they want to witness the atmosphere, because it's amazing, and the spectators are always really enthusiastic, as they often are at French races, as you may see on the World Cup and this summer in Paris. You can't miss it. But no, they also come because it's a great opportunity to gauge, I think, the level of some of their opponents. It's a format which is extremely intense, extremely where you can work on things which you can't really work on in a training camp environment, having spectators behind you, so yeah, being under pressure without having the pressure of really having to succeed is I think is an amazing training opportunity, and I think it's why lots of the biathletes really want to be there to race.
Watching from however many thousands of miles away, I mean, the energy there is palpable. I don't know how something like this has gotten off the ground so fast, except for the group that's running it just has a really good, just a really good plan. And they've clearly, just put a lot of time and effort into it. And I guess it helps when you've got a name like Fourcade attached to it, and you can get the best athletes in the world, right? But
definitely,
I think a lot goes to you guys too for being there and getting the energy and the crowd excited.
Yeah, I think having Martin there definitely plays a massive part. Martin in France is he's a national figure. He's looked upon by so many people in France. He grew biathlon immensely and definitely helped push this event. But it's also because the team behind it organise loads of separate activities as well, which is something I mentioned I think in the newsletter, is that having the athletes race is one thing, but it's also the opportunity to have separate events. On the Friday evening there's always a concert, which was had 7,500 people there this year, which was a lot of people. I got there a bit late and we weren't allowed in. Luckily, I could just find a couple of people and we were then allowed in. But
I remember reading that you used your contacts to get in eventually.
Use Jean Richard's contact list. It's a bit bigger than mine to get in. But yeah, it's things like that. In between the races, there's also loads of events to do in the Village des Exposants, the partner village. There's always loads of activities to entertain the spectators, loads of food truck offerings and things like that, which helps to bring people in, because in the end, the biathlon race, especially in that format, it's short. It's 20 minutes. Right. So you don't travel halfway across France to watch a 20-minute race. So that's why, lots of people will come for the weekend. I'll spend the time in Annecy. I think it plays a big part as well. That the town is a beautiful place to visit. And the events, like the events next to the main event, are also really entertaining. And they also run a public race, which I raced for with Rossignol on the Sunday, which was a biathlon running event. Which also brings in loads of people, loads of teams, and that made the national news. And then the actual race on the Saturday didn't, which was quite funny.
Does the town itself contribute a lot to the festival, honestly?
It's something I don't really know.
Okay.
There's obviously a partnership in between both of them, because it completely blocks off a part of the town for the 3 days. Because they race on the main road in the centre of the town. You do not want to be driving a car in Annecy on that weekend, but then you don't ever want to be driving a car in Annecy during the summer. It's an absolute nightmare. But no, Annecy definitely play a big part. I think without the support of the local town, it definitely couldn't happen. Important to keep those relations going. It's also the problem I think that Germany had with the Wiesbaden city biathlon. They've had to change the venue to go to Dresden, which I imagine might have been a financial aspect as well. I obviously don't know everything which is going on. And also the Blink Festival's changed place a couple of times as well. They've done it outside of the town on the shooting range in Sundness. Right. But I think that was also because of COVID, the COVID restrictions a couple of years ago.
But like you said, like when you're there, you're also going into town just to
Yeah,
shop
definitely.
or tourist or something like that. So
Yeah,
there's a good benefit for the city.
Yeah, and it brings loads of people to Annecy at the end of the summer, which often in France is when everyone goes back to work, goes back to where they live to get ready for the school, which starts early September as well. So it brings people back out. It's kind of the last big event in the town, which kind of marks the end of the summer season and the beginning of back to work for everybody, which I think lots of people quite like getting out for one last time.
Yeah, one last big party.
Yeah, exactly. One last big party. That's often how it happens for us as well.
Look ahead. Let's say we skip 10 years ahead, and I see you as a athlete on the French national team. Would you see yourself as an athlete on the IBU Biathlon World Cup that includes summer, winter events, or would there be two separate events, and which one would you be part of?
Yeah, so as a big defender of summer biathlon, I would most definitely see myself racing on both circuits because I really like roller skiing. I know lots of biathletes would go, oh no, I like it because of the skiing part and I want the snow. But last winter there was a time during the winter where we didn't have any snow in France to race, and I don't want to say luckily, but I wasn't there. But some of my teammates turned up to this race, and yeah, they raced on roller skis instead of skis in the middle of February, which not something you want to be doing very often. But it's definitely something we're going to have to think about because the climate is warming slowly. We've seen it. I've seen it. And in 10 years' time, I think, especially because in 10 years, the IBU have set, and it's written down in their Target 2030 report, which they published a couple of weeks ago. They want to invest more in these kind of events in summer biathlon. And I don't know if we need a full-on summer circuit. I went to talk to some ski jumpers actually to see how they do it, because they do have a full-on summer circuit with 4 or 5 events. But as they said, they use it more as training events. But it's also training events which do bring in a lot of people. So it has an economic advantage for ski jumping to host these summer events. Not all athletes go, but they still happen. And I think it might be what happens in biathlon in 10 years' time. We might have summer events.
That said, though, and I thought it was very interesting that you brought those in. But so if they have a winter event where there's not enough snow, they can still jump on those hills, right? Like whether it's the artificial grass or whatever, because I think that's kind of a state where, if there's not enough snow in, say, Pokljuka, I think they would just cancel the event. Like there's only so much they can do with bringing in snow. And I know in Novo Mesto they did, but it was because it was the World Championships. I don't think otherwise it would have financially wouldn't have made sense. And then I also think the environmental impact, like I think the IBU is doing a great job at considering the environment, but bringing in snow can't be very environmentally friendly.
No,
making snow is not environmentally friendly either. So
storing snow is surprisingly much more environmentally friendly. So that's something which happens a lot. But like where in the Grand Bornand they store snow, but they store it 20 kilometers away from the shooting range. So they
is
have
that with the sand dust? Or the
the wood chippings. Yeah, in France we use wood chippings for most of our snow storage. I know some countries put big insulated sheets. But no, in France, in Bessan, where I will go in 2 weeks' time, they use wood chippings, and for the World Cup in Le Grand Bornand, it's most definitely wood chippings as well.
Yeah, in Kenmore too. As we speak, they're actually laying out a track right now, which is absurd because I was there 2 days ago shooting in plus 20 degrees Celsius. Yet they're putting a track out. So
our tracks in France get laid out on the 1st of November historically in Bessan, and then the second place, Les Saisies, where they also have some snow farming, it'll be laid out on 10th of November, a little bit later. But we have our selection races for the World Cup and the IBU Cup on the 10th, the 13th and the 14th of November. So we need to be able to ski a little bit before the actual event.
For sure.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah.
Just a little bit.
But it is such a tricky situation, right? Because we don't have that opportunity to be like, well, there's not enough snow, so we'll just go roller skiing. That's
Yeah, and it's also because lots of the World Cup circuits are laid out for the winter, so for a winter event. So in the IBUs, I don't know what you call it in English, but le cahier des charges, so where you write down all the recommendations for a good biathlon venue.
Mm-hmm.
The spacing is all done for when there's actual snow there.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I don't know if, for example, Antholz has concrete under their tracks, but I wouldn't want to go down on roller skis on that on that track, especially not when it's like 3 meters wide only. But
that's also another aspect. Some of the biathlon tracks, like I know in Ruhpolding, it's really wide, and you can host massive events there. They had the World Summer Championships there. What was it, last year? I think last summer.
Mm-hmm.
And those went really well because the track's really nice and wide. But if you'd host, all our tracks in France are quite narrow. We host summer races on them. This weekend there's a summer race, our French Summer Championships in Arson, on quite a wide track. But yeah, hosting an elite level event, I think to host the World Summer Biathlon Championships, you need the IBU want a certain width of roller ski track, which would involve some investment as well from a lot of the venues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm still mostly. Yeah, I mean, at some point they're going to have to make some decisions on it. But I'm just really curious into the future if we're going to see athletes that participate in both, or if it's going to be a joint event, or if it's going to be separated. And I was a little surprised how clear Justice Strelo was about how he feels the best athletes in the world would just do both. If it became like a, I guess, more official circuit.
Yeah, well, if you make them do both, everyone will most definitely do both because they have no choice, obviously. And we've seen recently that when IBU makes some decisions which are controversial to the athletes, they will make the decision, even if like 90% of athletes are against it. But I would happily race both. Maybe not a full 10 event series like we have in the winter, but 4 or 5 events closer maybe to the season, like start end of August and finish in early October, and that gives us still a good month or 2 months for athletes to rest up and recover and get ready for the winter again.
I'm going to come back to this question now, but I'm going to ask it now so you can think about it. Have you thought about how you would design a summer World Cup or a summer biathlon like World Cup schedule or a tour? Like I said, if you have an answer now, great. Otherwise, we can come back. I
have an answer because I'd thought about mocking up a full-on calendar for my newsletter entry, but in the end, I didn't find the time to do it, sadly. But no, as I just said, I think it would start early August, middle of August, and it would finish early October. You'd have 4 events or 5 events in biathlon venues, or maybe you could like relocate it and do it all in Asia or something like that. I don't know. I know like the NFL or the NHL sometimes do events abroad from the USA to try and bring in an audience. I think there's a American football event in London in the next couple of days, or in Paris, I don't know. And it brings in a more international audience, and could be a reflection of avenue for the IBU. But yeah, no, definitely you want at least 4 or 5 events to make a calendar actually interesting. 3 events is useless. It's not enough. 6 or 7 is probably too much. As the IBU, I think, are also thinking about is making different style of event formats. Maybe move away from like the classic sprint, pursuit, mass start, and do something like I think the Czechs did at the regional championships, which was some kind of draft system event with flares, which looked very, very interesting. I would have loved to be an athlete at that event.
Kidding, yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because as I was asking that question, I had it right here pulled up on my iPad, the picture of it, and your quote you put in there from Carol Halberstadt, from the Czechia team. So
massive thank you to him for that picture as well, because it does look absolutely wild. It's something which sadly in France you're not allowed to have in sport events, the flares, because of breathing in the fumes and things like that. It's not very healthy. But obviously in Czechia they have different rules. It made for some very cool looking pictures.
Yeah, and I agree. That event that they had where it was like it started out like as a qualification with for like a super sprint, and then there was a draft where the women got to pick their male counterparts, and it sort of turned into a single mixed relay. I thought it was fun, and I would love to know who came up with that.
Oh, I think the IBU sometimes in their meetings come up with all kind of formats. Biathlon, you can think of everything. I've done in France before on days where it's been windy. I've done individual races, but with penalty loops instead of time added. Just because when we get in that, and it often changes right before the race as well. We'd be told the night before, so tomorrow, no 1 minute penalties. You'll go around the penalty loop instead, and so anything's possible really. And I'm sure that the IBU tests lots of formats. We've seen it on the IBU Cup. They like testing formats. They bring some in, take some off.
Yeah. Super sprint.
That will also make it more realistic because we've talked about it. You wrote about it. That in summer biathlon you can create some really interesting venues, I guess. But I think what we've seen so far of all the the Blink Festival, the Dresden, the capacity of the range is often limiting to how serious you can make it, because like you said in the Annecy with 8 competitors, it's a lot of fun, it's amazing, but it doesn't really feel like an official race.
It doesn't. It's just a
and
showcase
then it's
race.
Like do you have a park in Annecy that's large enough to have 30 lanes side by side, or can you find a city that has a square that's big enough? So I think that will still be interesting, but
their space round is 25 lanes in Annecy. I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
when you watch the race, they have a massive long start and finish straight, which they can use.
Yeah.
So, but that's also where I think that creativity comes in. Like they're exploring that mass start 60, but you could also have a mass start 30 if you only have 15 lanes, for example, right? Or
definitely.
At some point, I even
we have some shooting range in France where there's only 16 lanes, and that sometimes happens.
Well, and I was at some point, I don't know how we got to the point, but about a double, like an elevated range. So you have the width of 15, but you have 15 on top of each other.
Oh my word!
And then you just you
start getting
change
security problems.
Well.
Yeah, we are shooting proper live firearms. I know it's something much more common in Northern America, but not something that happens very often around here.
But it just, I guess the point is more like there's a lot of creativity that could help with coming up with ideas that are not that seem very out of the box, but that could be a solution to being able to have a full event in a summer venue that's maybe deemed not suitable right now, but.
Yeah, and it's just we're going to have to invest in some more venues. If we host the Olympics in France in 2030, I think we're going to have to build a proper venue to host this event. And when they start planning this venue and building this course, I think it's definitely some of the reflections we're going to have is, should we design this for Winter Olympics, or should we design this for Winter Olympics and a World in the future where we might be racing more in the summer than in the winter, especially if they do it in Le Grand Bornand, because that place will be running out of snow very, very quickly.
Right. Yeah. And I guess that's the sad feeling I have with this topic the whole time, is that it just feels, and probably is, inevitable, and probably faster than we anticipate. So,
I mean, I think about my son Ben. He's 4 years old almost, and it'll certainly be if not in my lifetime, in his lifetime, it will look dramatically different. So
I've seen it just where I live as well. I live at 800 meters elevation. When I was much younger, I could go sledding in my garden pretty much all winter.
Right.
And now this only happens. Well, I don't go sledding anymore, but I only have to clear the drive for my car once or twice during the winter instead of daily back when I was younger.
Yeah.
How much do athletes talk about this? amongst yourselves? I mean, it clearly is not just a passion for you all, but it's also like it's your life. So I mean, I on some level I could see that people would talk about it all the time, and on another level you're like, well, this is the job that's ahead of me right now, so I'm going to focus on this. So
Well, when they raced on roller skis last winter, I think that was the only thing everybody was talking about during that weekend of racing. But apart from that, it's a discussion we have. We all, the climate activists at heart, I think we all know what's coming and what we have to do to make it better. We try not to think about it too much. Obviously, I'd prefer to race in the winter. I'd prefer to have really snowy, wintry days. I much prefer the cold than the heat. But no, it's definitely a discussion that we have. I know in my French team, we've had this discussion many times on what will happen in the next few years. What about summer biathlon? It's something that we've talked about. Some of the older athletes really don't care because they'll be retired by the time it comes. But amongst some of the junior athletes and the younger B-level athletes, it's definitely a chat that we have more regularly.
Mm-hmm. And then, because you're also ambassador for the IBU, right? On the environmental part?
Yeah, sustainability. So it's invited. We focus a lot on the environment, but we also talk about the people part, the gender equality. Sustainability is very large. There's economics in that, the social part, the education part. But yes, we mainly focus on the environment, trying to improve the environmental impact that we can have as athletes, promoting the IBU's measures with other athletes, talking about suggestions, participating in meetings. It's an incredible role that the IBU have put in place, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Is that mostly an off-season thing, the meeting part? Or is it?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. I think this summer we met 3 or 4 times, but then during the winter, lots of athletes have much tighter schedules in between Thierry and Michele and Maya, who can be on the World Cup, and I, who might be on the IBU Cup this winter. It's often hard to find times to talk. But the promoting the climate is then defending the environment, something that happens all year round. Just the meeting part's definitely more during the summer.
Right.
Speaking of, you went to the well, tell us about it. You went to a seminar this summer in Montenegro, and I believe that you were speaking about that while you were there, correct?
I was. The theme of my talk was athlete's voice, changing the system from within. Mm-hmm. So this was an amazing opportunity, which I had. I got the call from Johanna Teilneman, who's a Estonian biathlete. She's
we know her well.
Yeah, she's the chair of the athlete commission for the European Olympic Committee, I think. And she'd asked me if I was available to go. I generally don't hesitate to say yes to these kind of things. Obviously checked with my trainer if it would fit into my schedule, because it's not a very long trip, but it's still traveling across Europe to talk. But I was really happy to go there. The theme, there was 2 themes at the seminar. One of them was sustainability and the other was AI. And I got the chance to talk in front of all the National Olympic Committee leaders about how important it is to listen to the athlete's voice, to include us in the discussions that impact us directly.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned AI as well. Is that just more as an upcoming, or past that already, I guess? But the technology, how come you use that?
Or the AI was so I use AI a lot. I have many AI platforms open on my computer all the time. But when you think about the people who lead these National Olympic Committees, they're much older. They're much more older generation, and AI is something very new to them, which they not hostile, but which they were all scared of. So the aim of the seminar was to try and introduce what AI is to these leaders, and to do a crash course on how they can use it. It's the IBU are going to start to talk about it as well. It was I think one of the themes during their congress last week. But as I said, I there was workshops as well, individual workshops by. Even if I would have loved to go to the AI workshop, I went to the sustainability workshop and talked about how important it is to listen to us athletes, because in the end, any decision they make, we are directly impacted by it.
Right. Hey, I also read about you have another project. I guess you're part of MindsMelt. You describe it as a website dedicated to mental health in sports. Is that can you tell us a bit more?
It's something I try and work on as much as possible. It's obviously hard, as you've been able to see. I write a newsletter, I train, I also go to school more or less daily online. IBU Sustainability Ambassador, but everything and the subject which is most impactful to me is obviously athletes' mental health and athletes' mental well-being. And the end goal of mine is to have this amazing website with resources for athletes to look for help when they need it. Phone numbers, vital for people who are looking to talk to someone in need and things like that. But yeah, it's a project I struggle to find the time to work on it, sadly. I talked about it on the 10th of October last week for World Mental Health Day. But it's something which... Go ahead.
No, so is it more focused? Like I know Andrea Henkel, I think she has a program that, amongst other things, I guess sees the mental aspect of her program more as what's your mental awareness or mental state you need to have as a champion kind of thing. And from what you're saying, it's more about, how can you have a negative impact from a mental perspective, and how can you deal with that or support people with that? Or do you do both, or is it?
My aim is more trying to break the stigma around talking about mental health struggles, as is elite athletes. We're portrayed as people who are really strong, always focused, never feeling down. But when you talk to lots of these athletes and see them all year round, lots of them sometimes are struggling and struggle to talk about it. So my aim is more breaking the stigma, spreading awareness. I'm not a doctor at all, so I can't talk about mindset or how to work on that. I'm just trying to promote a more safer environment for everyone.
And that's huge. I
really
think the ability to bring it out in the open is really, really important. Because I think, I think as human beings, we are doing better at that. But I think you're right that with professional athletes, you guys are looked at as supermen, right? And of course, you guys are great. How could anything be wrong? But in the last couple of years, we've seen Emilia Jacqueline and Vanessa Vogt and I think Tilda Johansson all speaking about.
Yeah, Lene Gross as well, talking about some of the eating disorder that she had. They're all mental health struggles, and athletes like this talking about it on the big stage is really important, and it inspires so many people.
Yes, absolutely. So I think it's huge to bring that and to shine light on it. I just more
and we're lucky
about
because the IBU the IBU are listening to us athletes about this subject. They're putting things in place, bringing in professionals to help us as well. And it's one of the things which we're really lucky in biathlon to have a federation that listens to his athletes and implements changes to help us fight all the struggles that we may have.
So we're big picture, taking into all these things, that project, sustainability, talking about summer biathlon. I know your focus right now, as it should be, is on being a world-class athlete. But when that's over, have you thought about what you want to do and because I'm not saying this just because you're sitting in front of us right now, but the way you think about biathlon and the sport is so broad and it's so deep at the same time that it seems like you'd be a perfect fit for somebody who could be involved in the IBU, in the French Federation, to bring the sport forward into the next, 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah, I'd love to. Obviously, I go to school as most people do in France when they do professional sports. We all go to school as well. I know that's often how it happens in the States. It's not what happens in Austria, Italy, and Germany. Lots of them are all on paid contracts with army lot. But no, I study digital management and business, which helps me in a lot of the work I do. And yeah, looking past biathlon, I definitely want to be able to bring my point of view to the sport and to work on this sport. MindsMelt would be probably the biggest priority of mine, building it out properly, making it a massive non-profit, which helping more than just biathletes, helping the bigger sports community as a whole, and not just athletes but also staff members, because everyone's impacted by mental health. But yeah, working with the IBU, I'd love to. Working for the European Olympic committees or the IOC, also things I'd be very happy doing. I also have the Olympic Games in 2030 in France.
Yep.
I know some people who will be organising hopefully these games, and I would love to be on their good side when it comes to building a team.
Yes.
But no, obviously, yeah, at the moment my focus is professional sports. It's racing at the highest level. But yeah, in a future world, impacting sports is definitely something I'd like to do.
2030, you would be just around your peak performance age.
I would be, yeah. So it's either I'll be hopefully racing at these games and being one of the best French athletes and providing an immense, amazing race for spectators, or who knows, Team GB. It's also possible. Racing in France is racing at home is obviously something which any athlete wants to do, and yeah, I have numerous possibilities to do this, but if not, working on these games and providing the best games for athletes and for spectators is also something which I'd be happy doing. So, yeah.
And so for the upcoming season, correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't qualify for the A team, right? But are you fighting now for a spot on the IBU Cup level? Is that?
Yeah, so I got kicked out of the national teams in the spring. The way they do it in France, I was on the train heading to Lyon to give a talk on mental health, and I got a call from my trainer saying, "Yeah, sorry, you won't be with us next year." And that's it. There's no more communication after that at all. It's very direct. I went back to my local team, the regional team, which I'm part of, which I've trained with all summer. And the good thing is I will be at the start of the same races as the A team and the B team in November. And the A team will be pre-selected for the World Cup, but on the IBU Cup, I have just as much chance to be there as people who are still on the national squad.
Okay.
You know, this is the hard part about being in one of the larger biathlon nations, like in Norway, right? Is that there's so many athletes, is that there's limited space. Whereas, you know, in the United States, you'll see pretty much the same names year after year, or Canada, but you know, there's just such immense competition, and there's limited space. So thankfully, you do have that opportunity,
and it's amazing. It's what we look for. It's what it will come in America as well. I know it. I've seen some of the athletes coming up, and the density will come. But yeah, there's a list of easily 20 athletes who could be on the IBU Cup in November under the French colours. I'm going to have to give everything I have to be there. My preparation hasn't been the best. I won't be racing this weekend at the Summer Championships because I'm ill. I've also had some tendonitis on my Achilles tendon, which has put me off training for the last couple of days. But yeah, the density in France is amazing, and it makes for some really interesting races. The French Cup is such a high level of racing. I had the opportunity to win the French Cup 3 years ago. I came second last year. And yeah, obviously the A team isn't there, the B team isn't there, but I'm still racing against some top class athletes, and I'm still really satisfied when I'm on the
no
podium
kidding.
in France.
I was reading I think you had a post from, was it last month? Time kind of runs together, but sorry. Jacques he muted himself, and he just mentioned that he was under the weather. He had to blow his nose, so he's not lying. He really is under the weather here.
Yeah, no, most definitely.
So you had a post, I think it was last month, and talking about how the intense the training was from earlier this summer. And you were, I think you wrote that you were struggling to walk up the stairs. So that you at least earlier in the summer, it sounds like you were really going all out.
We're going to come across another problem now because my nose is now bleeding. Yeah, sorry.
No,
so the first time I actually got hurt on our podcast.
Yeah, no, this is horrible.
Yeah, it's just from blowing my nose a lot, but no, I can still talk. That's not a problem.
How long have you been sick? Sorry,
only the last 3 days.
Oh man,
I tried training yesterday when I wasn't fully recovered, and I woke up this morning just feeling so much worse. So I definitely regretted yesterday's training session.
That's the hard thing too, right? Is because it's like there's that mix between if I don't train, I feel like I'm falling behind, but if you train, you also can make it worse. So it's like this double-edged sword.
It's something which I've started writing about for my next newsletter. But like racing this weekend, a couple of years ago or even last year, I would have gone even if I wasn't 100%. But this year, I've made the choice. I'm a wiser person. I know myself more, and it's tough not going to races. It's horrible. I always look forward to the summer racing in Arcon. There's always so much public there to watch us, but yeah, this year I will be at home watching my teammates on the TV because the races are broadcast as well.
And there's going to be a large amount of international athletes there this weekend too, right? I think I was reading.
I think there's some Germans, the Swiss, the Belgians. I think some of the British team will be there as well.
And Maxime Germain is going to be there.
Yes, I was meant to drive him there.
No kidding. Were you really?
Yeah, I was.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I was meant to take it because he lives he stays in Chamonix when he's here, which isn't far from where I live. So we were meant to go together and stay together, but yeah, that won't be happening anymore.
No, he does not want to be around you right now. He doesn't need a bloody nose going into this.
No. And I don't want to be injuring him before his winter performance.
Yeah.
But no, you were talking about how I was struggling during the springtime. I got hit with pneumonia at the end of last winter, which was just the worst thing which could happen. Luckily, it was during April and May. Mm-hmm. But as I said, at the peak of my pneumonia, just getting up to my bedroom, which is on the top floor of my house, was a massive effort for me. And I struggled a lot. I was very, very ill for many, many months. And it happens because during the winter, we're all so focused, always 100% thinking about our health, wearing our mask, not drinking, not going out to social events. And then as soon as the winter's over, all the pressure just lets go. And I have a very weak immune system, and I was ill straight away. And then, got ill and then caught pneumonia, and that stayed with me for a good month and a half, and meant when I was trying to get back into training, I was cycling very, very slowly, trying to run, but it was impossible. And I wanted to switch up my training this year and do some more high intensity sessions earlier in the year, but that made it impossible because I just wasn't able to accelerate at all.
And I would imagine that you mentioned the Achilles tendonitis, that there's a amount of catch up you have to do, and that's sort of how one of these tendonitis issues can crop up.
Yeah, exactly. Over pressuring the tendon, doing more sports than I'm meant to. I've never been injured. I've been injured, but I never had to properly stop sports because of an injury. I was at the physio yesterday, and he was like, no, you got to cut a lot of what you're doing over the next couple of weeks. I'm seeing him again tomorrow, and I will work with him very closely over the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
To try and get up and running as quickly as possible. But yeah, it's that when you're so close to the season, you're always like, oh, will I be ready? Will I not be ready? And yeah, it's complicated.
And they're probably telling you not to think about it that way.
Yeah, definitely. He's telling me, no, focus on your health. In the end, that's what will be better. It's like sometimes it doesn't hurt, and I'd love to go out training and to push myself. But yeah, on the long run, doing that session probably wasn't the best idea.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's how you learn and become the perfectly prepared athlete in 2030.
Yeah, exactly. It's
all puzzle pieces for the
focusing on the setbacks, focusing on yourself and your health. And in the end, I'm not racing this weekend, but I'm a passionate biathlon fan, and I will be watching my teammates and watching them race and sending them messages when they miss targets, just as I usually do.
Good. Yeah.
No, but I say that jokingly, but I do think it is a lot of the more experienced athletes, because I don't like the term older. They always seem to be able to adapt their training program to their body because they know the body very well. And as tough as it is to go through this, what you're going through now, I think it's also still an opportunity to get to know your body better and better. Yeah. And hopefully
lots of the elite athletes, they have pressure, but they know that once they're better, they will be allowed to race on the World Cup circuit. As I'm not very good. Well, I'm not at the top of my level, so like I'm not racing, and I'm not going to be given the opportunity to race once I feel better. I'm going to have to fight for my position back, as some elite athletes won't have to fight for that position. They'll just be told, once you're feeling better, you can go and race on the World Cup, which is perfectly normal. They've worked for that spot, and but yeah, if I'm not 100% in November because I've been injured, they're not going to tell me, oh no, you can still go on the IBU Cup. We know that once you're feeling better, you'll have the level. That's not how it happens, sadly.
Yeah. Well, I wish you all the best with your recovery.
Yes.
Yeah. And hopefully this can be one of those recoveries where in the long run you find out that taking that break and rest maybe helped you to get up really strong at some point in the season.
Yeah, definitely. And it gives me the time to work on different projects as well, writing more newsletter entries.
And at least you won't be bored based on what you've told us. So
recording podcasts as well on very short notice.
Yeah.
Speaking of rest, it's getting late your time, but before you go, I really want to know, because it has always been a dream of mine to go to the Olympics. What was your favorite part of Paris 2024?
The atmosphere, honestly, was absolutely amazing. I've been to Paris when there is not the Olympics on, and Parisians can be not very open to talking to other people. But I think lots of the Parisians escaped Paris during the Olympics, and also the international audience that was there just made it such an amazing time. Anywhere you went, people had their flags out, were feeling patriotic, which is something which in France, walking around with a flag, any other time of the year, you would be frowned upon. It's not a cool look, unlike in other countries. But here, everyone was really happy to be French, really happy to represent their country. You'd go into a bar and you could talk about the Olympics. Everybody knew what they were talking, knew what was happening. And yeah, that was amazing. It was really well organized. Transport was perfect. I think the fact it was in Paris also helps. It's a beautiful city. But if you have the chance to go to Milan Cortina in 2026, which I'm going to try and do, maybe race there, who knows? If not, I would love to go and watch, because whatever happens, I will know people on that start line. So I want to be there.
Yeah. So regardless, we'll meet you there. We'll buy you a drink.
Definitely, it'd be because
we'll be racing.
Fine, we'll buy you a coffee.
I'll buy you a drink. If I'm racing, I'll most definitely buy you a
drink.
There we go. But no, the Olympic Games, it was something different. I was lucky enough to be invited to watch some of the fencing, which is the sport you don't often watch. I was in the most amazing venue in the Le Grand Palais. I got to watch the French beat another nation, which is Yeah, that was one of the things which was a little touchy. Was the French would cheer on the French.
Yeah,
they'd struggle to cheer on any other nation.
Okay.
There was a lot of booing going on, which obviously I'm not for at all. But it just the atmosphere was intense. And I'm sure
you mentioned the venues were just spectacular.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Grand Palais was amazing for the fencing. Then I was watching the road cycling. I went up to Montmartre, which is where the big steep hill was, where there was all the spectators. I sat on the side of the road for 4 hours to keep my spot on the side of the road to watch the women's race, which was amazing. Walking around Paris is outstanding. I don't often go to Paris, and I didn't regret going up this summer.
Mm-hmm. Can imagine.
Yeah, I'd love to come to the States to watch 2028 in Los Angeles. It will be a completely different experience, to completely different cultures, but both countries will.
And then you can race in Soldier Hollow in 34.
Yeah.
10 years from now, you'll be 32. It'll be perfect.
Yeah, it would be perfect, and. Yeah. It's lots of athletes race until that age. When I was in Soldier Hollow a couple of years ago, I found it amazing. Really nice venue, really well organized. Everyone was really friendly. I'd love to come back.
Who was it that hated it? Was it Eustace?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it was just Estrello. He was not a fan. I think the weather when they were there was not ideal though.
Yeah, right. when I was there, the first few days it was -20, and then the last day it was 10 degrees, and we were racing in our short sleeve tops, which meant we were all ill when we got home because we were going from extreme cold to extreme heat. But
yeah, I think it was like that, and it was a wet, sloppy mess. So I don't think they had a wonderful wonderful race conditions out there.
And then they went up to Canada in Canmore, and the conditions were amazing, and the course was really nice. And perfect place to finish off the season.
Yeah, they should do it more often. Makes it a lot easier for me to watch.
Not that we have an opinion on that.
No,
makes for easier race times. Don't have to wake up really early or go to bed really late.
Well, and I must say, like my biggest fear the whole season leading up to that was that the championship would have been decided, and people would be like, "Yeah, I'm not traveling to Canada anymore because I'm globe winner anyway," or something like that, and B. It could have easily been -25 and the races would have been canceled or something like that. So, to have that incredible weather
don't worry. I think as athletes, when we get the opportunity to go to travel across the Atlantic Ocean, we will always take that opportunity.
Fair enough.
So it should happen every other year.
Yeah, it should.
Actually, speaking of summer biathlon, that would be a good opportunity. Bring it over here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. We have taken up more than enough of your time. You're sick. You need to be recovering. You should be drinking some tea and getting some sleep. So there you go. Perfect. So we'll call it there. We will definitely have to have you back. Like I said, and I honestly I don't say this just because you're sitting here. I value your perspective, and I value how much you think about it and how much effort and how much time you put into it. So
thank you very much.
You are a valuable voice for the biathlon family.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, and keep up the great work on the podcast. The Biathlon Analytics website is something I use a lot as well.
That's
great work.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
All right,
Jacques.
Go sleep.
All the best. I hope you that the bleeding nose is fully stopped. It seems like it, and a good recovery. And thanks so much.
And hopefully you're the last biathlete that we injure during our interview.
Who knows? Who knows?
All right.
Take care.
Good luck.